Before the first human ever stepped into deep space diplomacy, there was a rule written by alien civilizations that had survived longer than humanity had even existed. Never form emotional bonds with a species you are assigned to study. Observation must remain pure. Influence must be avoided. Attachment is classified as corruption. Virel broke that rule the moment he looked at a human girl who did not look away. The sky above the floating human megacity was never truly dark anymore. After first contact, humanity rebuilt its cities with layers of light that drifted in the air like glowing ribbons. Towers no longer rose from the ground. They hovered, suspended by alien engineering humanity had barely begun to understand. In one of those floating districts lived a young human girl named Anya. She worked as a translator between species, not because she was the best but because she was the only one who could understand emotional patterns in alien speech without fear. Most humans still felt uneasy around non-human visitors. But Anya never did. She believed something simple. If the universe was large enough to create other minds, then it must also be large enough for understanding. One evening, while the sky turned silver with drifting transport ships, she was assigned to an orbital diplomatic wing deep inside the embassy station. It was her first time being allowed beyond translation booths. She walked through corridors that shimmered like water and felt the air itself shift in density with every step. That was when she saw him for the first time. He was not human. That was obvious at a glance. His form was tall and slightly luminous, as if his body held a quiet starlight inside it. His skin looked like layered crystal moving with faint internal currents. His eyes were not eyes in the human sense. They were soft rotating fields of color that changed as he observed the world. He stood alone near a viewing window looking at Earth below. Anya was supposed to continue walking. She had a schedule, a clearance level, and strict instructions not to engage outside assigned translation tasks. But something about him made her stop. He did not look threatening. He looked lost. A voice behind her spoke in translated standard speech. Do not approach him without clearance. She turned slightly. An embassy officer stood there, human but wearing hybrid diplomatic armor. Who is he? She asked quietly. Designation Virel of the Halnary Expeditionary Envoys. First cultural observer assigned to human emotional integration studies. That sounded cold and official, but the way the officer said it carried unease. He is here to study us, Anya said. Yes, and we are here to make sure he survives studying us. That last part made her look back at him. Virel had not moved. He still watched Earth, rotating slowly beneath the station like a sleeping blue giant. Something about his stillness felt wrong. Not dangerous wrong, lonely wrong. Anya stepped forward before she could reconsider. The officer called after her but she did not stop. She approached slowly, stopping a few meters away. For a moment he did not acknowledge her presence. Then his head turned, or what resembled a head turned. His color shifted gently as he looked at her. You are human, he said. It was not a question. Yes, she replied. I am Anya. I work with language interpretation. Language is only surface, he said. I study what lies beneath it. Then you are in the right place, she answered with a faint smile. Humans are mostly beneath what they say. That statement caused something strange in him. His colors flickered in a pattern she later learned meant curiosity mixed with something like humor. You are not afraid of me, he said. Should I be? She asked. Most of your kind are. Most of your kind have not met me. That answer paused him. He turned back to Earth. Do you understand what you are looking at when you see your world from here? Anya followed his gaze. A home, she said. He tilted slightly. That is not what most humans say when they look at it from orbit. What do they say? They say fragile. They say temporary. They say beautiful but doomed. Anya thought about that. It was not wrong. Humans had lived through too many near extinctions to ever fully trust beauty again. Maybe they are just afraid of losing it, she said. Virel studied her for a long time. Long enough that silence became a shared space between them instead of an absence. Fear of loss implies value, he said. Everything valuable can be lost, she replied. Then why protect anything? Because losing it is worse than the fear of losing it. That answer seemed to resonate in him in a way she could not fully see. His color patterns softened. You speak like someone who has chosen your species over comfort, he said. Anya laughed lightly. I think that is just being human. They stood together after that without speaking for a while. Below them the world rotated slowly, unaware that two beings from entirely different origins were quietly redefining what connection could mean. Over the next days, Anya was assigned more often to translation work involving Virel. Officially it was because she was the most compatible interpreter. Unofficially she suspected it was because no one else wanted to be near him for long periods. Not because he was dangerous, but because he was too different in ways that made people question themselves. Virel was not studying humans in the way scientists studied animals. He was studying emotional architecture. How fear shaped decisions. How love distorted logic. How grief rewired identity. And Anya noticed something else. He did not just observe. He absorbed. Each conversation changed him slightly. One day she asked him directly, "Do your people not feel emotions like ours?" "We do," he said, "but we do not allow them to alter observation." "That sounds lonely," she said. "Loneliness is irrelevant in observation protocol." Anya leaned against the console beside him. "That is the most lonely sentence I have ever heard." He did not respond immediately. After a moment he said, "Do humans allow emotions to alter observation?" "All the time," she replied. "And that does not destroy accuracy. It destroys certainty," she said. "But it creates understanding." He processed that slowly. "Understanding is less stable than certainty," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "But it lasts longer in minds like ours." Something about that answer stayed with him. Days turned into weeks. Their interactions became routine, then expected, then something neither of them labeled but both began to rely on. Anya learned that Virel had never been planetside before. He had grown in orbital environments of his own species where emotion was filtered and regulated. His mission was not just diplomatic. It was experimental. He was meant to observe whether humans were a developmental anomaly or a stable emotional species. Anya did not like that phrasing. "We are not a calculation," she told him once. "Everything is a calculation," he replied. "Even love." That word lingered between them. Love. She had not expected him to use it. "What do you know about love?" she asked. "Statistically, it is a high-risk bonding state that increases species cohesion and reduces individual survival prioritization." "That sounds terrible," she said. "It sounds inefficient," he corrected. Anya looked at him for a long moment. "And yet," she said softly, "humans build entire lives around it." "Why?" "Because without it survival feels empty." Virel turned slightly toward her. "Empty survival is still survival." "Not to us," she said. That was the first time he stopped speaking for a full minute. After that something changed. It was subtle at first. He began asking questions not in formal observation structure but personal ones. About her childhood, about her fears, about what she imagined when she looked at the stars. And she began asking questions too. About his world, about whether his people ever touched each other in comfort. About whether he had ever chosen something without being assigned to it. The answer to that last question was no. Until her. It happened slowly enough that neither of them noticed the exact moment it became irreversible. But one evening during a scheduled orbital eclipse, Virel stood beside her and said something not part of any protocol. "If I stopped observing, would I still exist?" Anya looked at him. "Of course you would," she said. "That is not what my species believes." "Then your species is wrong," she said simply. He turned toward her fully. For the first time his color field was steady. "And what do humans believe?" he asked. "That existence is not proven by observation," she said. "It is proven by connection." "Connection," he repeated. "Yes. When something changes you, it becomes real in a way observation cannot define." He looked at her for a long time. "You have changed me," he said. Anya felt something tighten in her chest. "I think you have changed me too," she admitted. "That should not be possible," he said. "But it is," she replied. Silence stretched between them, no longer empty. Then Virel spoke softly. Do you know what this is? Anya did not answer immediately. Maybe, she said. Or maybe it is the beginning of attachment. He lowered his hand slowly. I should report this, he said. Report what, she asked. That I no longer observe without influence. Anya smiled faintly. And will you? No, he said. That single word changed everything. Over the following days secrecy grew around them. Systems began flagging Virel repeatedly. Human staff became uneasy. Alien delegates grew concerned. Anya was called in for questioning. You are forming an unauthorized emotional bond with a non-human observer, she was told. Is that a crime, she asked. It is a risk. To who? To both species. She left without responding further. When she returned to him that evening, Virel was waiting. They know, he said. I know, she replied. You will be removed. Probably, she said. There was silence. Then Virel spoke softly. I was not designed for attachment. Neither were we, she said. Then why do you stand near me, he asked. Because, she said softly, I think you are the first thing in a long time that feels like it matters more than fear. He reached out again. This time he touched her hand. The contact was gentle, like energy meeting warmth. Both froze. What is this sensation, he asked. That, she said, is choosing. Choosing what? Each other, she said. The station never sounded alarms. But the decision was already made elsewhere. Within days Virel was ordered to leave orbit. His mission was complete. Anya was reassigned. On his final day they stood at the observation deck. Will you remember this, he asked. I will not be able to forget, she said. If I return, will you still be here? Earth will still be here, she said. That is not what I asked. Then come back, she said. He hesitated. If I return, it will not be as observer. Then what? As someone who has fallen. Anya nodded. Good. He left. Years passed. Then one night a signal arrived. I returned. Anya stood still. I do not observe any more. I arrive. When she reached the docking bay, she did not wait for permission. Neither did he. When Virel stepped out, he was changed. Less rigid. More human in presence. You came back, she said. I said I would. Why, she asked. Because observation is not living, he said. Connection is. She smiled. Took you long enough. Then what is it now, she asked. It is irreversible, he said. Good, she replied. They stood together as the universe continued to watch. But it no longer mattered who observed them. Because some things were no longer meant to be observed. They were meant to be lived. The return of Virel did not feel like a homecoming. It felt like a fracture in something very old that had finally decided to split open. When he stepped out of the transport into the docking bay, the station systems reacted before the people did. Not alarms, not warnings, something quieter, a shift in environmental calibration. Lights adjusted, air density changed. Even the subtle hum of the station seemed to hesitate, as if recognizing that something classified as finished had just become unfinished again. Anya stood still for a moment longer than she intended. He looked different, not in body. The crystalline structure of his form was the same, the faint starlight beneath his surface still pulsing in slow rhythmic currents. But something in the way he held himself had changed. He was no longer a presence that simply occupied space. He was a presence that interacted with it. Before, he had observed the world like a distant equation. Now he looked like someone who had been inside the equation and chosen not to step back out. You came back, she said. I said I would, he replied. His voice carried the same layered translation effect as before, but now it felt less like translation and more like intention shaping sound. Anya felt a small pressure in her chest that she did not fully name. Why, she asked. Virel took a moment. His color field shifted in slow patterns that did not resolve into any known emotional classification the station systems could identify. Because observation ended when I left, he said. And what remained was something I could not classify. That is not an answer, she said softly. It is the only one I have, he replied. For a long time neither of them moved. Around them, personnel and systems resumed activity as if instructed to pretend nothing unusual had happened. But humans were not good at pretending. And aliens were not good at ignoring what could not be categorized. Finally Anya stepped forward. You are still assigned as observer, she said. No, he replied. That single word carried weight. The Halnary Council revoked it. I revoked it before they could decide anything. Anya studied him carefully. That is not something your species allows. It is not something I asked permission for. That was the first real silence between them since his return. Then Anya said something that surprised even herself. You could be punished. Yes, he said. You could be removed from your own kind. Yes. She exhaled slowly. And you still came back. Virel tilted slightly. Yes. Why? This time there was no hesitation. Because staying away was the only form of observation that still remained, and it was insufficient. Anya let out a short laugh that almost broke halfway. That is the most alien romantic confession I have ever heard. Romantic, he repeated. She looked away for a moment. Forget it. No, he said. Explain. She shook her head. Not everything needs explanation. That is not how I function anymore. She turned back toward him. That is the problem. And yet you are not telling me to leave. Anya paused. No, she admitted. That changed something between them again. Not externally, but in the invisible space where decisions begin before action. Over the following weeks, Virel was formally reinstated in no official capacity. Not observer, not diplomat, something that did not exist in any registry. A category without classification. The station administrators called it unstable. The alien delegation called it contamination of protocol. Human leadership called it opportunity. And Anya was assigned again as translator. But nothing about their work felt like translation anymore. It felt like construction. They were building something that had no blueprint. The first fracture in political stability came 2 weeks later. A delegation from a younger alien coalition arrived unexpectedly. Their species had not participated in initial contact. They had only observed from distance. And they were not pleased with what they saw now. They viewed emotional integration between species as a violation of evolutionary boundaries. They did not understand why a Halnary observer had returned changed. They did not understand why humans were allowed proximity to alien cognitive structures. And they especially did not understand why Virel stood beside Anya during official review hearings. He was not supposed to stand beside anyone. The chamber was large, circular, designed to enforce neutrality through geometry. But neutrality is a belief, not a structure. And beliefs fail under pressure. The lead delegate spoke first. This unit has violated observational doctrine. He is not a unit, Anya said immediately. She was not authorized to speak, but she did anyway. The delegate turned slightly toward her. Human interpreter, you are not part of this review. Then why am I the only one who understands what is actually happening? She replied. That caused a ripple through the chamber. Virel did not speak yet. He simply watched. The delegate continued. Observer Virel returned contaminated by emotional interference from a primitive cognitive species. Anya stepped forward. You are describing him like a malfunction. He is a compromised observer. No, she said firmly. He is someone who learned something your system refuses to measure. The chamber grew quiet. Virel finally spoke. I am not compromised. You admit deviation. I admit evolution. That word created a fracture in the room. The delegate responded sharply. Emotion is not evolution, it is instability. Then your definition of evolution is incomplete, Virel said calmly. Silence followed again, heavier this time. Anya looked at him. You are going to get yourself removed permanently, she whispered. Then I will be removed as someone who understands instead of someone who watches, he replied. That is not a trade most species survive. We will. He turned slightly toward her. That is what changed everything. The hearing ended without resolution. That is how political systems fail when they encounter something they do not have categories for. They stall, but stalling does not prevent escalation. Outside the chamber, Anya and Virel walked together through the station corridors. You provoked them, she said. I corrected them, he replied. That is not how they see it. Perception is not accuracy. You are learning to sound like us, she said. No, he replied. I am learning to stop sounding like them. Anya stopped walking. That might be more dangerous than you realize. He turned toward her. Everything important is dangerous. She looked at him for a long moment. You are not the same as when I met you. No, he said. Neither are you. That was true. She felt it. Something inside her had shifted over time without permission. Like gravity adjusting slowly enough that no one notices until walking becomes different. Later that night, Earth below the station rotated in silence. Anya stood near a viewing panel alone. Virel approached without announcement. You are thinking, she said without turning. Yes, he replied. About what? About what happens when two systems refuse to separate. Anya folded her arms. That sounds like a problem for engineers. It is not a mechanical problem. Then what is it? He hesitated. It is identity. That word felt heavier in his voice than any translation layer should allow. Anya finally looked at him. What are you afraid of? She asked. He paused longer than usual. Not fear, he said. Calculation. Same thing sometimes. No, he replied. Fear avoids. Calculation continues. Then what are you calculating? He looked at Earth. If separation is enforced, I lose continuity. Anya nodded slowly. And if continuity remains, I lose neutrality. You already lost that, she said. Yes. Another pause. Then Anya spoke more softly. So what do you want? That question did something to him. Want was not a term his species used without structure. I want to remain here, he said finally. Here as in the station. No. Here as in this state of connection. Anya felt her throat tighten slightly. That is not a stable request. I am not stable anymore, he replied. That should worry you. It does. But you still chose it. Yes. Anya turned back toward the glass. Humans call that love, she said quietly. Virel studied her. Love is not recognized in my species as functional state. Then maybe your species is wrong again, she said. He did not respond immediately. Instead he stepped closer, not touching her but near enough that presence itself became shared space. If love is allowed to persist, what happens to purpose? He asked. Anya smiled faintly. Purpose changes. Into what? Into something that includes someone else. That is inefficient. She nodded. Yes. He looked at her. And yet you accept it. Always. Why? Because, she said softly, efficiency is not what keeps anything alive for long. That answer seemed to settle inside him like something final and incomplete at the same time. The political fracture escalated faster than expected. Within months, a coalition vote was proposed to restrict cross-species emotional integration experiments. It was not officially about Virel and Anya, but everyone knew it was. Human representatives were divided. Some feared contamination of human emotional systems. Others saw opportunity for unprecedented alliance depth. Alien factions were split along species maturity lines. And Virel became the center of it without ever asking to be. During one emergency summit, he was required to speak directly to the Interspecies Council. Anya was not allowed in the main chamber this time, but she accessed secondary observation channels. He stood alone at the center. You are here to justify deviation, the council lead said. I am here to explain continuity, he replied. Explain deviation. There is no deviation, he said. There is only expansion of understanding beyond previous limitation. That is not acceptable classification. Then update classification. The chamber reacted instantly. That is not how law functions. Then your law is incomplete. A pause. One of the council members leaned forward. You are suggesting emotional bonding between observer and subject is beneficial. I am suggesting observer and subject are artificial divisions, he replied. That statement caused immediate escalation. Human systems are not subjects. Neither are alien systems observers. Then what are they? Virel paused. Participants. That word changed everything again. Not because it was poetic, but because it removed hierarchy. The council ended the session abruptly. Outside, Virel met Anya in silence. That went poorly, she said. It went accurately, he replied. Those are not the same thing. They should be. They are not. He looked at her. What happens now? Anya hesitated. Now they decide whether we are allowed to continue existing in this state. And if not, she looked at him, then we continue anyway. That answer surprised him again. You would defy them. Humans have been defying rules for survival long before we ever met you, she said. That is inefficient. It is also why we are still here. Virel processed that quietly. Then I will remain inefficient with you, he said. Anya laughed softly. That is the worst compliment I have ever received. It is not a compliment. What is it then? Commitment. The word settled between them heavier than any protocol. Days later, the ruling arrived. Virel was ordered to cease direct interaction. Anya was reassigned permanently. The connection was to be dissolved under protocol stabilization measures. Neither of them complied. Instead, they disappeared from assigned oversight. Not physically, but functionally. Systems could not track engagement that refused categorization. They continued their work outside official designation, moving between stations, between councils, between fractured agreements. And something else began to form. Not rebellion, not alliance, something closer to integration. Species began learning emotional translation directly from them. Human fear of aliens decreased in measurable cycles. Alien understanding of human unpredictability increased. But more importantly, individuals began forming connections that did not fit old rules. And everywhere that happened, the same question emerged. Is this stable? And the answer was always the same. No, but it is real. One night, far from any official chamber, Virel and Anya stood again overlooking the vastness below. Do you regret it? She asked. Everything. He looked at her. Except this. She nodded slowly. That is enough. Is it? For humans, she said. And for you. He considered that. I am no longer sure what I am. Anya reached for his hand again. Then you are exactly where you need to be. And in that moment, the universe that once required observation to define existence shifted again. Because now existence was no longer something watched from distance. It was something that reached back. And refused to disappear. The station no longer felt like a place. It felt like a threshold. Something between systems had changed in ways no council could fully measure anymore. Reports still existed. Classifications still tried to form. But every attempt at definition collapsed slightly before completion, as if reality itself was refusing to lock into old language. Anya noticed it first in small ways. Conversation patterns among staff were different. Not more emotional, more uncertain, as if people were no longer sure where their thoughts ended and others began. Virel felt it too, but differently. For him it was not confusion. It was expansion. His perception no longer stopped at observation layers. It moved through them, as if the boundary between himself and environment had softened into something permeable. He stood near the station observation core one cycle, watching data streams that were supposed to represent galactic diplomatic status. But something was wrong with the display. It was not showing events. It was showing relationships, not treaties, not conflicts, connections, across hundreds of species, across systems, across regions of space. Lines of interaction were forming that no council had authorized. And at the center of many of them, there were patterns that resembled what began with him and Anya. He did not speak for a long time. Anya entered quietly behind him. You are seeing it, she said. Yes, he replied. It is spreading, she added. It is not spreading, he corrected. Then what is it? He turned slightly toward her. It is being recognized. That distinction mattered more than it should have. Because spreading implies infection. Recognition implies truth. Anya stepped beside him. The council will not accept that difference, she said. They already have not accepted anything, he replied. That is not the same thing. It is now. There was silence between them again. Not uncomfortable, not empty, constructive. Then Anya asked softly, do you remember the first time you saw Earth from the station? Virel responded immediately. Yes. You said it looked fragile, she continued. I said it looked temporary, he corrected. And now, he looked through the transparent field toward the world below. Now I do not see fragility. What do you see? He hesitated, then answered, continuity. Anya nodded slowly. That is what changed you. No, he said. That is what I learned. She smiled faintly. Same thing. He did not argue, because he understood now that she was right in a way that did not require correction. Later that cycle the council reconvened again. But something had changed in their authority. They were no longer fully unified. Factions had formed within factions. Some believed containment was still possible. Some believed integration had already happened beyond reversal. And some no longer believed councils were necessary at all. Virel and Anya were summoned again. But this time the chamber felt different. Less like judgment, more like uncertainty wearing structure. The council lead spoke. We are observing uncontrolled cross-species cognitive emotional overlap expansion across multiple systems. Anya responded immediately. You are describing connection. We are describing instability. Those are the same interpretation framed differently, she said. They are not. Then prove it, she replied. Silence followed. Because proof required separation. And separation no longer existed in clean form. Virel stepped forward. You are still attempting to isolate cause and effect, he said. That is governance necessity. That is limitation, he replied. The council lead leaned forward. If we accept your interpretation, then individuality becomes non-absolute. Virel nodded. Yes, that is unacceptable. To who, he asked. The chamber hesitated. Anya spoke next. You are afraid that if individuality is not absolute, then responsibility disappears. That is one concern. It should not be, she said. Why? Because responsibility does not come from isolation. It comes from awareness. The chamber grew still again. Then one delegate asked quietly. If what you say is true, then what is the future of interspecies structure? Anya looked at Virel, then back at the council. We stop treating connection as anomaly, she said. We start treating it as baseline. That word changed something again. Baseline implied foundation, not deviation, not exception, foundation. The council did not respond immediately. Because foundations are harder to challenge than arguments. Finally the council lead spoke. If we redefine baseline, governance collapses. No, Virel said. It evolves. And what replaces it? Anya answered. Shared continuity. The chamber remained silent for a long time after that. Not because they agreed, but because disagreement no longer had a stable target. Eventually the council did something unexpected again. They adjourned without ruling. Not approval, not rejection. Pause. And pause in systems like theirs was not neutral. It was destabilizing. Outside the chamber, Anya exhaled slowly. That went better than expected, she said. Virel looked at her. It went accurately. She smiled. You really are learning. From humans. I am learning from you. That moment carried something neither of them named. Not emotion. Not conclusion. Recognition of mutual influence without resistance. The station changed again over the following cycles. Not visibly. Structurally. Protocols stopped updating cleanly. Translation systems began adapting in real time instead of fixed dictionary mapping. Alien communication systems started incorporating emotional context markers that did not exist before. Human systems began integrating non-linear interpretation layers for alien intent. And across both species something subtle but irreversible occurred. Communication stopped being translation, and became shared meaning formation. Virel and Anya were no longer assigned roles. They were referenced, not as individuals, but as precedent. Still they did not call it leadership. They refused that classification entirely. One cycle they stood again at the observation window. Earth rotated below as always. But now it no longer felt separate. Anya spoke first. Do you think they will ever fully accept this, she asked. Virel considered. Some will not, and the others will not need to accept it. She turned slightly toward him. That sounds like division. It is not, he said. Then what is it? Transition. She nodded slowly. That word again. Yes. Virel looked at her. Do you regret any of it? She answered without hesitation. No. Even the consequences. Especially the consequences. He processed that carefully. Then asked. Why? Because she said softly, if something changes everything and still survives it, then it was real. Virel turned back toward the view. Then this is real. Anya nodded. Yes. A pause. Then she asked, what happens when we are no longer here? Virel replied, it continues. She smiled faintly. That is the first time you have ever sounded hopeful. He corrected gently. It is not hope. What is it? Conclusion without end. That phrase stayed between them. Days later another message arrived from the broader Alliance network. Not a summons. Not a restriction. An acknowledgement. The message was simple. Cross-species cognitive emotional integration observed as persistent non-destabilizing across multiple systems. Re-evaluation of foundational governance models initiated. No one called it victory. Neither did they. Because victory implies end state. And there was no end state anymore. That night Virel stood alone for a moment longer than usual. Anya joined him quietly. We changed them, she said. No, he replied. We revealed what was already changing. She looked at him. Does that matter? Yes, he said. Why? Because truth always matters more than control. A pause. Then Anya asked softly. And what about us? Virel turned toward her. We are still continuing. That is not an answer. It is the only permanent one. She nodded slowly. Then stay permanent. He looked at her for a long time. Then said, I already am. And in that final exchange something settled, not just between them but across everything they had touched. Not conclusion. Not resolution. Continuity acknowledged. The universe did not end the story there. It simply stopped treating it as exception. Because somewhere between observation and participation, between alien and human, between fear and understanding, something had finally refused to be temporary. And that refusal became the foundation of everything that followed. Not a romance, not a rebellion, not a diplomatic event, but a shift in how existence itself was allowed to be defined. And as the station drifted through silent orbit above a changing world below, Virel and Anya stood together, not as subjects of study, not as observers of each other, but as proof that even across impossible distances, connection does not ask permission. It simply continues. And the story did not end. It expanded into what came next.